Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 19. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation, as we move closer to Week 1. Games start tomorrow around the NFL. Of course, Pittsburgh kicks off Sunday, 1 p.m. against the New York Jets. So, Dave, plenty to talk about. Mike Tomlin holding his first presser of the regular season. That was yesterday. How you doing?
Yeah. How are you, Alex? How was your off season?
It was good. It's a busy off season. Didn't feel like much of an off season, but happy about that because it always gives us something to discuss.
Yeah, long time no talk to. We did 3 shows a week every week through the off season. There is no off season officially now, but exciting time, obviously. Football, real football gets underway, college football underway as of this past couple of weeks here. So, and look, the Steelers had Mike Tomlin hold his first Tomlin Tuesday of 2025. That's going to give us a little bit to talk about today. We had the first injury report, official one coming out later this afternoon. And really going to start the show, I think, with some Jets news that came out this morning, right?
Yeah, we'll talk Steelers injuries in a second. Nothing crazy, pretty much status quo there, but the Jets just had one pop up. This news came out Wednesday morning that starting right guard Alijah Vera-Tucker, who's just named a team captain for New York, has suffered a potentially serious injury, according to Diana Rossini. Adam Schefter noting it's an arm injury, and he's going to miss or could miss significant time. You don't know for sure his status for Week 1, but based on the wording, it would seem like very, very unlikely he's going to play in Week 1. So the Jets' loss will be the Steelers' gain.
Yeah, what a big loss that is. That is arguably their best offensive lineman for the Jets over there at right guard there. And the team's also going to be starting their rookie right tackle, who's at Mimbo, this week as well, too. And then now he'll have playing alongside of him. I'm guessing they're going to do something with either Josh Myers or Tippmann over there on that side. Remember, we just talked, I think we talked, maybe it was on the live stream the other night, or maybe it was the podcast the other day about potentially what they're going to do at center. And all Aaron Glenn said, yeah, we're going to have a center. Well, thanks for that info. And I don't know, maybe looking back, maybe he's a little bit perturbed. I don't know when that injury happened and all like that. Obviously, you were going to find out about it probably later this afternoon when the Jets released their first injury report for Week 1. But that's a pretty significant blow for the Jets. And as mentioned, rookie right tackle over there, going to have probably Tippmann or I think it's Myers over there playing at right guard over there. And obviously that's going to be on TJ Watt's side and potentially whoever else starts for this team opposite Cam Heyward, because Cam Heyward normally tends to play mostly on the right side of the Steelers defensive line there. But this is a Jets team that's, and Mike Tomlin, we'll get into what he said here in a little bit. This is a Jets team that Mike Tomlin said expects to lean heavily on the run. And I think we even talked the other night about the Jets and how well, at least last season, I noted in some of my notes how well they ran to the right side and kind of off right guard, right tackle. So to wake up and to see this news for the Jets and Vera-Tucker, as you stated, is heavily slanted in the Steelers' favor, obviously.
It was supposed to be, though, Derek Carman versus Vera-Tucker as that matchup, and now neither are going to play. Mike Tomlin ruling out Derek Carman of this game. So you almost, in a sense, wish it happened on the other side so Cam Hayward would get that really beneficial matchup, but still obviously a loss for the Jets. And as you said, that right side with now a new right guard shifting over, in all likelihood with that rookie right tackle. Will Pittsburgh run a lot of stunts in games and try to create some confusion and chaos? think we'll see a good dose of that in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So significant for them, and we'll see what the rest of the Jets injury report shakes out to be later on this afternoon.
First one getting released today, and that'll run through Friday with the final status report. We'll get to the Steelers' injuries in a moment, but some housekeeping and some practice squad moving and shaking. I don't believe it's been officially named by the team in terms of the corresponding move, but it has been official. The team has released veteran wide receiver Robert Woods from the practice squad. That occurred yesterday, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Woods asked for his release, and Pittsburgh obliged and released him. Woods signed with the practice squad after cutdowns, but he was looking for a place on a 53-man roster, a chance to go play somewhere in what could be the final year of his NFL career, and that was not going to come in Pittsburgh. I'm a little unsure, Dave, why he signed the practice squad in the first place, knowing there were no injuries. There was not going to be a way for him to get elevated and work his way into any sort of offensive role, so I'm not sure what the calculation was at first, but now he's officially a free agent again, and we'll try to find a new home.
Yeah, I'm with you. Kind of curious decision on his part. I wonder if he maybe thought there was a chance Calvin Austin wouldn't play in week one, and maybe he'd get an elevation or something that way and get a full paycheck that way.
Maybe, but obviously Austin's going to be good to go, and I think Woods finally at least saw the writing on the wall.
All right, and who do we think at least reportedly is coming in to replace that practice squad spot?
Yeah, from Pittsburgh, we know they visited with him, and then the report came in from Greg Auman, who's a Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat guy, but well trusted and respected the team. Reportedly will be signing John Radigan to the practice squad. At least we assume the practice squad, given that spot is now available. He's been a core special teamer throughout his career. 3 years in Seattle, spent last season in Carolina, all of 20 defensive snaps. He's got plenty of more on special teams. And I remember I made this comment whenever Pittsburgh first formed their practice squad. I said there may be one short at inside linebacker because they only had the 5 on the 53. Usually you keep 6 to have, first string, second string, third string to have 6 in total. And so it makes sense to add Radigan and another special teamer who could get the call up if and when injuries strike.
He's sort of like a Tyler Matakevich type, is he not?
Yeah, he's like a Carson Bruner, a Mark Robinson. He's that core, multi-phase, special teamer through and through. Not going to really add much defensive value, but can come up not only if there's an inside linebacker injury, but an injury to, say, a tight end or somewhere other multi-phase guy on special teams that can, Radigan can step in and fill those shoes.
To go back to the Jets situation real quick, Zach Rosenblatt, who will be hopefully we have him scheduled to be a guest on the Friday podcast. He covers the Jets and all. He just put out his projected with this injury to Vera-Tucker. Expects the offensive line to be Fashanu at left tackle, John Simpson at left guard, Josh Myers at center, Joe Tippmann then playing right guard, and Armand Membo at right tackle. You know who the backup swing is over there? Tackle?
I don't. Tell me.
Chukwuma Okorafor.
Okorafor made the roster. Hey, good for him. So more things change, the more they stay the same.
So it seems like Myers at center and then Tippmann over to right guard. That's a pretty big boy over there, too. Isn't that is Tippmann a Wisconsin guy?
Minnesota. Oh, wait. Well, no, that was Michael. I think I did the wrong guy. I think you're right on Wisconsin. Let me double check here. But Pittsburgh, I think, had some interest in him whenever he came out of the draft. They were looking. You're right. Good call. Wisconsin. I was thinking of who's the Giants center? That's who I was thinking of there on the Minnesota kid. But yeah, Tippmann should bounce over. So certainly a downgrade for the Jets.
All right. We got through the housekeeping there. We got through the Jets situation. Mike Tomlin, I guess, time.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin speaking to the media on Tuesday. We'll start with a health update on the team and really no big surprises, nothing of the Jets' magnitude. Mike Tomlin ruling out rookie Derek Harmon for this game. No surprise, but he's ruled out before the first injury report even dropped. That MCL sprain suffered in the Carolina preseason finale. Tomlin called Nick Herbig questionable with a hamstring injury suffered in that second preseason contest against Tampa Bay. Said his level of practice and quality of that practice will be the team's guide, so we'll see his status. He said that Herbig had a good day on Monday, although I know that Pursuta and others captured Herbig without even a jersey on, just kind of going through light stretch lines. So Seems maybe less than 50% for Herbig, but we will see on that. Other than that, the group is healthy overall. Calvin Austin's going to play. Alex Highsmith will play. The others will play. So it's Harmon, the big one, who's out, and a Herbig name to watch.
I guess all things considered, going through training camp, and well, obviously a couple of those guys went to IR, and a couple of guys, younger kids, waived injured and injury settlements and all like that. This team came out relatively okay health-wise, or as if I would have told you that this would have been the situation, guaranteed you the situation at the start of training camp. Obviously Herbig, you hate to see that, and your first round draft pick in Derek Harmon, but I don't know if you would guarantee take that, but all things considered, it's not bad overall, and we'll have to, as you stated, wait and see on Herbig. We'll probably get a good, maybe definitive, even if Herbig is listed as questionable on Friday, because Saturday is when elevations take place. We've talked a little bit about the potential of maybe DeMarvin Leal being a guy that'd be elevated. If he is indeed elevated, not that it's foolproof, because we also talked about how Leal can potentially help this team on the kickoff coverage team, but that might be a pretty good sign if Leal is elevated on Saturday. But we'll wait and see how the week plays out for Herbig, and at least right now I'm kind of expecting James Pierre to be the other, or at least one of potentially two elevations on Saturday.
Yeah, if Herbig can't go, they have to bring up a fourth outside backer. You can't have three deep, one of those being a rookie for this first game where you're chasing Justin Fields around, Mike Tomlin talking about playing rotations and leaning on that a bit more early in the season as people get their legs under them and their conditioning back to ramp up and play a full complement of snaps. So you would think a move will have to be made there, and just have to wait and see on Herbig. Hopefully he can play, but just Pittsburgh may want to play it safe, make sure they don't turn a smaller injury into a larger one, which is sort of what happened with Alex Highsmith last year, pushing through that groin injury and then having to miss more time once he tweaked it early in the season. So other than that, though, Pittsburgh in a pretty good place in terms of replacing Derek Harmon. Mike Tomlin said a committee of people will do that, to not mention any one person by name, but you can reasonably assume it'll be a variety of people, basically everyone that's available to them. Loudermilk, Y.A. Black, maybe some Daniel Quale, Logan Lee, all those guys probably will dress and be active for this game as they try to replace Harmon until he returns.
Yeah, absolutely. I know who two inactives will be already. Going to be Skylar Thompson as your emergency quarterback, number 3, and Derek Harmon will be inactive. We'll see how many elevations are done. That will determine if the list is either 5 or 6 or 7. And Herbig obviously could potentially be on that inactive list if he's unable to play. Probably going to be an offensive lineman also inactive for this game. At least one of them, potentially maybe even 2, right? Because they've got 10. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have 10. Usually they address 8.
All right. So, and we'll have to see how the rest of it shakes out from there, but should have a pretty good feel of what that will look like come Saturday afternoon once the elevations are done.
Not to look too far ahead, but with Harmon already ruled out for this game, it's hard for me to think he's going to play against Seattle for the home opener. If you're ruled out on a Tuesday before really any of the bonus day Monday, but you're ruled out very early in the week, concretely, definitively, he's not playing, not even leaving the light on as Tomlin likes to do, tells me your odds of playing against Seattle in week 2 are not very good. Not impossible, but I'm expecting more of a week 3, week 4 return for Derek Harmon.
Yeah, how about our first that not great Bob situation of the season here, especially with, as you stated, him, I mean, definitively to come right out week 1 and say he's out on a Tuesday. There's no light on, there's no door jar or anything. But yeah, keep your fingers crossed. At the very least, they didn't place him on IR, right? So
sure.
Maybe something will happen, get him back in the second game, or at the very least, maybe by the third game, or at least by the time they get over to go over to Ireland.
Yeah, I have a feeling his debut may come in Dublin instead of stateside, but we'll see. We'll see what Tomlin has to say a week from now, and then get a whole lot more to talk about until we get to that point. So what else from Mike Tomlin? He talked about, what else did he talk about? Just the Aaron Rodgers.
Hayward.
Oh, yeah, we should start there with Cam Heyward. He fully anticipates Cam Heyward to play in week one. Cam Heyward's own verbiage may be less confident in saying that on his Not Just Football podcast that aired earlier this week. He kind of a side comment, but was asked by his co-host Hayden Walsh if he was playing this week, and Heyward, with a very straight face, said, "We'll see." So I still think he's playing. I think some other comments that have been made on his podcast with teammates indicate he's going to play, but Hayward at the least will keep things a little vague until kickoff.
Yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's been a topic of conversation since about, I don't know, the middle of training camp, latter stages of training camp with him and all. Neither one of us expect him to sit out. I think we've gone on record several times as saying that. I'll be surprised if he does. Mike Tomlin sounded very convinced that Cam Hayward's going to play. I'm not sure when they recorded that podcast the other day. I would imagine potentially Monday.
Recently.
Yeah, or whatever. You know what today is? Today is September the 3rd. You know what happened 1 year ago today?
His contract extension, right?
Right. He signed his contract extension, and that was obviously at that time. I think the season started for the Steelers on the 8th. What I'm getting at, what we've noted, a few times here, is there's still time until there's not time. Now, you would think that something like this would leak out if they do some, and I think he was asked too if there's anything to report on his contract on the podcast the other day, and he said no, nothing, or something along those lines. There, we'll see. Both him and Chris Boswell. I think we mutually agree that if something were to happen with one of those contracts being adjusted, it's probably going to happen with both contracts for Boswell and Hayward being adjusted. So we'll see. I still think that at the very minimal, they should guarantee all of his 2026 money. I think you seem to be in the camp of thinking that the only way you're going to really truly satisfy Cam Hayward is to move some of that money from the roster bonus in 2026 up to 2025 that way, and then having maybe potential conversations again next off season. But regardless, we both expect Cam Hayward to play on Sunday against the Jets, and the only question now becomes between now and Sunday if there is any adjustment done to his contract and Chris Boswell's.
I suppose it's worth noting if there's any participation note on Hayward for the injury report today, if in theory he was listed as DNP for personal or rest. Now, granted, he often rests early in the week, but if we see him not practicing all week, that would, I guess, indicate the suggestion that he wouldn't play for week one, but the reporting, what's out there, I know that reporters are limited on how much they can really say about what's happening at practice at this stage of the season, but the reports are he's been working in team periods, and so I assume he'll be practicing essentially in full. But if there was a world in which Hayward was going to follow through on some of the hints he's made about not playing week one, you would imagine that'll be reflected in the practice report where he's not practicing throughout this week.
Right. Do you expect him to be full or limited or DNP today?
Rest. Probably limited is my guess, and that's not a contract related thing in my view. It's just he's 36 years old and doesn't need a bunch of reps, and they're getting other guys ready, kind of thing. But the point is, and we are in agreement here, he's playing on Sunday. I'm not really even sure, frankly, why he's still trying to hint and pretend and be a little coy about will I play, won't I play. I know it's all a leverage game, but who are you fooling at this point?
Do you think he knows? Do you think they've already talked to him a little bit about it, or do you think he's still waiting for them to come back to him?
I don't know. I mean, I assume he says there's been no discussion, so probably not much dialogue there. He may. I think maybe at this point he just realizes it's out there. The team probably won't listen, but what am I going to do? Am I really going to sit out as a captain of this team, as a guy who wants to win in one of the final years of my career? I think he knows his options are pretty limited at this point.
All right, keeping real quick on the Cam Hayward podcast thing, what do you think about all he had to say about Connor Heyward?
Just defending his brother, and he certainly sees the criticism. I know Connor does too. Those guys are not immune to it, and obviously Cam, especially on social media, a decent amount. So it's his brother, and certainly Connor Heyward is not a future Hall of Famer like Cam in all likelihood is, but Connor Heyward certainly has some value on this team and is a really strong special teamer, and I'm sure Cam sees the work that his brother puts in, and I know Rodgers talked about his IQ, and teammates have talked about how diligent Connor Heyward works. So he is who he is, but I can certainly see, because anytime you even mention his name, it's this just
Right.
avalanche of hate against him, and he sucks, and it's nepotism, and get him off the roster. And I'm sure that can be grating for the family standpoint, because I see that and kind of go, it's a little overcorrection. I understand that Connor Heyward is not going to be a star in this league, but there's certainly a role and value on this team. So, just a brother defending a brother, and you can respect that.
And look, and we've stated several times, if they had a better option to be the fourth tight end that could block and play on special teams, he probably wouldn't be on the roster, right? But the fact of the matter is he's above average on special teams, and you obviously don't want to have him play a lot of snaps during a game on offense, but he can cut block at the very least. He's considered a smart guy on that side of the football. You can utilize him in the passing game if you design something up for him. He's got fairly good hands over and all like that. That he's on the roster because of what he adds to this team. More specifically, I think on special teams and as an emergency kind of tight end on offense there, and not just because his last name is Hayward. Now, with all that said, would it have been a real shock had he not made the 53-man roster? I guess technically, yes, it would have been, because of the way those backup younger tight ends on the roster, that we went into training camp wondering, could any of these guys take out Connor Heyward, and we got answers to that fairly quick overall there. But I don't hate him for defending his brother like that. He sees it. And look, if Connor Heyward goes out and forces a fumble on special teams on Sunday, those people are going to go back into the bushes real quick, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but some say, if his last name wasn't Hayward, referring to Connor, then he wouldn't be on this team. But I think people wouldn't have the offense taken if his last name wasn't Hayward and he was just a backup player like a Mark Robinson who played on special teams and hardly any on his side of the ball. If his name was just Johnson and he was a number 4 tight end who could play on special teams and was pretty athletic, people would be like, yeah, that's fine to have him around. That's not a big deal. So I think he gets the hate because his last name is Hayward, and people think it's nepotism. And listen, does the last name hurt him in the evaluation process? No, I think whenever Pittsburgh went to draft him, they love their bloodlines. They love the NFL ties. It's how the Carson Bruner this year. It's not just because of the last name. It's because they know these guys have been around the NFL. They have brothers in the league. They know how these guys work and think, and they're exposed to it, and that gives them a level of understanding. They obviously can go to Cam and be like, what is Connor like? And they have an inside track on him that other teams simply don't. So, yes, does that last name help initially to get drafted? Yeah, absolutely. But is that the reason why he's still on this team now? No, it's not.
Right. Did the last name help him get drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers? The obvious answer is yes. That felt like much like Bruner, smash. And look, we could go down the list, right?
TJ Watt last name certainly helped him get drafted in Pittsburgh, I think.
Yeah. And it's almost like a free space on the bingo card, kind of situation. But to last this long, I mean, yeah, the last name got him drafted and all like that, but you don't hang around 4 seasons in the NFL just because of a last name.
Right, they didn't retain Derek Watt. I know they signed him initially, but they didn't bring him back. And if that was all because of nepotism, then he would have stuck around because of that, if the theory held true. So I think most people get that. It's the vocal minority that will rail, and it's just the online hive mind sometimes that can get a little too loud, more than it probably deserves to be. So, Cam Heyward defending his brother, understood. If you take Connor Heyward for what his role is as that back end of the roster, core, solid special teamer, a good athlete, going to play 5 offensive snaps a game, then that role is perfectly fine.
I will personally be rooting for Connor Heyward to make a couple of special teams tackles or plays on special teams on Sunday against the Jets.
One thing we didn't get to that we should have gotten to top of the show, even though it's kind of a layup in terms of expecting it to go this way, the Steelers announced their captains this week. Their 4 captains, as every team does this week, and no surprises there. I think we rattled them off even before it became official. Offensively, quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Defensively, Cam Heyward, TJ Watt, and on special teams, Miles Killebrew. So Rodgers, of course, he's the quarterback, but his first year, people have praised his leadership, his buy-in, being a good teammate, and that gets reflected in his captaincy status.
Yeah, you could have taken a pretty good guesstimate at what those 4 were going to be, and they were what we kind of expected. Mike Tomlin was asked about the captaincy of Aaron Rodgers, obviously being a new captain, new to the team, and he said he wasn't surprised at what earth-shattering news, and I don't think it should be earth-shattering to anybody that saw it. I mean, generally it is, especially if you have a veteran quarterback that's going to be your captain on offense. So not a surprise there overall. I thought TJ Watt had some good comments about how he's going to try to be even more open to younger players. Not that he hasn't been in the past, but just a little bit, try to be a little bit more attentive to some of the needs of the younger players of the team, on the team, especially on the defensive side of football. And, Cam Hayward's Cam Hayward, Miles Killebrew. I mean, that guy is probably one of the smarter guys on the team, especially when it comes to special teams units. That guy's going to end up being a special teams coach in the NFL, isn't he?
If he wants to, I'm sure nothing will stop him from doing that. So 4-time special teams captain for Miles Killebrew. A little stat of the weird for you, Dave. Since 1998, the only other Steeler to be named special teams captain 4 times, linebacker John Fiala. Didn't think you had a John Fiala reference on your bingo card today, but boom, there it is. So
well done.
Congrats to Killebrew and Hayward, of course, longtime captain. Same with Watt, and Rodgers has been a captain for many, many years in all of his stops.
All right, stats of the weird time of season. I love it.
We are back.
All right, another, I guess, kind of weird stat of the weird as well, too. Matthew Marksy wrote about this, a la one of the AP writers bringing it up on Twitter yesterday. Both feel, let's see, this will be just the 7th and 8th quarterbacks to ever be teams that have faced their former team in an opener following the previous season there. And I believe this will be the first time that 2 quarterbacks of respected former teams will square off against each other in an opener as well too. So you got a little bit of little bit of storyline on top of the storyline of these 2 facing each other, is that you're essentially getting history in this situation. All right, back to Mike Tomlin and some of the comments he made about Cameron Heyward. He says, as we noted, I'm certainly expecting Cam to play. Cam doesn't play a lot in team development over the last several years. My job is to get him in and out of Latrobe, and I've done my job. There are no reservations about his participation or readiness. I'm sure he's Is it chomping or chomping at the bit?
I think it's technically champing at the bit, but I'm not the educator here.
All right. I'm certainly not. You are far more educated than I am. He was later asked too about Cam Hayward, and we talked, I think, a little bit about this on the live stream the other night about the percentage of snaps that Cam Hayward played on defense last year, and that was kind of brought up to Mike Tomlin yesterday. Would he kind of like to pull back a little bit more on Cam Hayward this year? And he said, "Look, it's all relative to what's going on around Cam more than anything." And he noted that, not having, Derek Harmon or whoever else you might not have due to injuries is certainly going to play a role in that. So, everything's relevant to the people around Cam Hayward staying healthy and Cam Hayward himself staying healthy as far as snap counts go. Now, I think in a perfect world, you would like to see him play about around the same amount of snaps that he played last year, right?
Sure, or even a little bit less as he gets older. You want to manage those snaps, and that becomes more and more important. But as Tomlin alluded to, and as you mentioned, sometimes it comes down to, okay, do you want to load manage or do you want to go win the game? When it's 3rd and 8, you want to sit there and say, well, we should have Hayward off the field so in week 15 he can go out there and feel a little fresher and maybe the wear and tear. No, it's 3rd and 8, go out there, rush the passer, and let's go get off the field. Like that's what it comes down to half the time, or injuries certainly impact things. I remember, what was that, like 3 years ago, 2021 or so, when they got ravaged by D-line injuries, and that whole plan of let's play Hayward less went out the window because you got to do what we got to do to go win games. So that's the calculation that obviously can shift in season. Do you want to load manage or do you want to go win the down?
Right, exactly. All right, anything else to add about the Cam Heyward portion of not only his podcast, but Mike Tomlin's comments?
No, nothing else there. We'll see his status on the practice report today, and of course, get final confirmation when the inactives come in Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Dave, going over to the other side of the football, in terms of that number 2 receiver, one of the hot topics throughout this offseason, basically since George Pickens was traded post-draft. Okay, who's going to be the number 2 opposite DK Metcalf? Pittsburgh really making no additional moves there, rolling with the group. They did, by the way, Gabe Davis signing with the Buffalo Bills on their practice squad. So Pittsburgh had him in for a visit twice. He ultimately goes to the team who drafted him and where he spent the first 4 years of his career. How upset are you about that, if any? I'm not really losing a lot of sleep over missing out on Gabe Davis.
No, not with him coming off the injury that he had. I'm more upset that Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going already from the 49ers practice squad reportedly to their 53-man roster. I kind of wondered if the longer that he stayed on the 49ers practice squad for whatever reason, maybe there would be potentially a chance that he'd end up coming over to the Steelers. Now it's still plausible, I think, between now and the trade deadline, for him to maybe be traded. But I had stated when that MVS news came out last week, I think sometime there, I was kind of rooting for that one because of the previous relationship that he had with Aaron Rodgers, the ability to he seems healthy, and C, he can go vertical, and that's if you're going to add another wide receiver to this group as is right now, that's exactly the kind of guy I think this offense need. And I would, if given a 1-for-1 choice, I would have taken MVS over Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis, I don't think would have been a bad consolation prize, but I still would have had MVS over Gabe Davis. So, am I crying in my coffee this morning? No, that Gabe Davis is going to the Bills.
And just to clarify, I was initially more excited about the idea of Gabe Davis, especially because that contract would have been for the minimum, because the Jaguars were on the hook for all that. But the more we realized that, even though it was just a PCL injury and it wasn't, say, an ACL tear for Gabe Davis last year, it was a really tough recovery for him, and he's still working his way back. And he talked about, I think, on the Shane Gillis, what an odd pairing that was, Gabe Davis and Shane Gillis. Not sure the connection there, but that is the internet these days. And he talked about he was already playing with a partial PCL tear, then fully tore something else, and had a blood clot in his calf, was on crutches for 3 months, was just getting back to running. And so the more that you realize, okay, this guy has really had a pretty serious injury that has had and required months of rehab and recovery, that A, is the speed there, and then B, when can you get him back and then get him integrated into your offense and new system in Pittsburgh? Obviously, it's going to be something familiar there in Buffalo. So, would it have been a terrible idea to sign on the practice squad? No, that would have been just fine. But the more that you hear about the injury and how serious it was and how he's still working his way back, the less, I think, appeal Gabe Davis brought.
Yeah. Alex, I have a question for you.
What's up, Dave?
If you have 5 quote unquote number 2s, do you have no number 2s?
It's like 3 kids in a trench coat. Can you just stack them together, kind of a thing? Yeah, that's going to be the question. In Mike Tomlin's mind, that he's not concerned with the number 2. That's basically his overall philosophy of, A, it doesn't have to be a receiver. It doesn't have to be just Calvin Austin. It can be the tight ends of Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. You mentioned Roman Wilson and his confidence in what he has done there. So Pittsburgh's view, and I wrote about this, I think, over the weekend, why Pittsburgh has not signed or added a veteran receiver. One reason is they really like their tight ends and their pass catching ability. And they probably in many ways view Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith as number two. As we talk about who's going to have the second most receptions on this team behind DK Metcalf, it may very well be a tight end. Likely will be a tight end. Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith will be right on up there. And then you have Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin. They think that at least the collective can produce enough results for this offense.
Feels like Groundhog Day, doesn't it?
Is it better than last year? I think it is better than last year.
It is a little better. I mean, Jonnu Smith, obviously. Sure. I mean, because that's and Mike Tomlin made sure to highlight this. This is a position, and hopefully it's just not lip service. That Jonnu Smith is a positionalist player, right? Because he needs to be used like a positionalist player.
Yeah, whether it's, I don't care what position he's at, the ball's got to get in his hands. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Whether he is aligning as the Y or split out, he's got to be able to be a playmaker, because that's a guy that can be a difference maker, a needle mover, the phrase we used over and over again last year, we probably will this year. That was a difference-making addition that they didn't have last year as that opposite, the number one guy.
I think one of the things, one of the more interesting things, and especially when we get to the charting or the tape, I guess overall, because it doesn't necessarily show up on the other side, because we have two different charts, offense and defense, and we've talked about this several times. The ability of this offense to either expand or collapse based on personnel size on the other side of the football, I think is going to be a key component of the success of this offense. If they see a light sub package group out there on the defensive side of football, will they have the autonomy and the ability to collapse it down and then run against it successfully? And on the flip side, if they see a heavy package out there on the other side, will they have the same ability to then spread it out and then try to attack it that way? I think if you're going to go into the season with this type of personnel group and really a committee approach to number two, number three, however you want to claim it, you've got to have the ability to do that.
Sure. I think when you don't have that clear-cut talent in terms of this obvious number two, the scheme matters so much more, and how you create matchups and how you put these guys in positions to win. Obviously, there's talent there, so it's not that it's all has to be, scheme manufactured, but just how do you put these guys in favorable situations? So there's really a big onus on Arthur Smith to do a better job than he did last year. There is more talent to work with this year, but the scheme still has to complement that as well.
Right. It's not just like we got enough horses over here. We're just going to roll out 11 personnel and we'll be able to get it done however we decide to do it.
Yeah, the Bengals can do that. Pittsburgh's going to have to work harder to make these plays happen, but the group is better. I mean, look, even at wide receiver alone, last year of Van Jefferson, compared to what Roman Wilson, I think, can offer this year. They're different types of people. Obviously, they have different skill sets, but you like Calvin Austin, another year in, more proven, coming off, I think, a successful 2024 campaign. Roman Wilson being healthy, I think that alone beats what you had last year. Then you add in the tight ends, Darnell Washington, another year in. You have Arthur Smith, another year in the system for his own comfort, better quarterback play, better passer, and Rodgers compared to Russ and Fields. All those things, in theory, should show improvements. But as you always say, Dave, it's not about the labor pains. Just show me the baby, and they got to put up results.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that baby starting in week one. And look,
can we clip that comment just out of context, Dave? I'm really interested in seeing that baby.
I don't know. It might be used against me in a court of law at some point. Look, in no way, shape, or form am I going to start a website or a fan club for Scotty Miller to make the Pro Bowl or All Pro in 2025. But I will say this, and I stated this I think a couple of times, and most recently the other night on the live cast there. We just cannot see the empty routes versus snaps played that we've seen out of this team for the last 2 or 3 seasons, right?
What has to change for that to change?
You have to get the ball to guys like Scotty Miller at least more. We got to say instead. What did I say? Scotty Miller played 25% of snaps last year on offense.
Yes.
And how many targets did he have?
10, 11. He had 5 catches.
All right. that just can't play. Either you don't roll him out there, or if you're going to roll him out there that much, and not a concerted effort. It's just got to be part of the progression, and we've got to see more targets and less empty routes of whoever's out there in this offense.
Yeah, I think there are some exceptions, even for Miller to a degree and Ben Skoranek, because they were playing as more that 13 personnel as that lone receiver on the field. Skoranek for his blocking, Miller as that speedy vertical threat, and also a chance to rotate some guys out.
But if we know that, we know the opposition knows that as well too. They're going out with one wide receiver on the field, and it's Scotty Miller. He's probably not going to get the ball.
Yeah, but you still gotta cover him. You still gotta
Right.
put a guy on him. It doesn't change that schematically, dramatically.
Right, but it's still got to be an option to be able to be used and actually be used more than it was last year.
Sure. No, I don't disagree there. But the guy that really got me last year was Van Jefferson, because I mean he's a number 2 that played a wide volume of snaps and just simply was not used in the offense. 24 receptions, 40 targets on what's the snap count? 721 snaps last year. That's the type of stuff that just can't happen, because that's a guy that's playing in all situations generally and just was not a component of the pass game. You're playing with 10 guys out there essentially.
Sure, and who's technically this year's Van Jefferson then? It'd be Roman Wilson, right? I guess.
I mean, Jefferson technically was the number 2, I think, entering week 1 last year. So in a sense, Calvin Austin, but I think Austin and Wilson are going to rotate and try to assume kind of both hats on the number 2, at least until somebody were to pull away and start making plays consistently. Austin is the veteran, so he gets the first nod. It's more proven, but that's kind of the way I think Pittsburgh is going to match this up.
All right, this all kind of rolls back into too why I don't think that DK Metcalf potentially will put up, maybe close to, but not exactly what people are expecting him receiver wide, because I want to see this ball spread around. I want to look at box score after the game and see 9 different guys catching footballs on the. That's what I expect to see. I expect them to spread the football around quite a bit.
Sure, and they will, and that's a hallmark of the Arthur Smith system. And when you don't have, a Cincinnati, okay, here's your 1, 2, 3 clear cut, your top guys, then the ball gets spread around. But the Aaron Rodgers component is going to feed DK Metcalf the ball. I think one of the best things Rodgers does well, we saw this with Devontae Adams last year in that Jets game against Pittsburgh, was go find your playmakers, get them the football. You watch them at training camp, open or not, Rodgers was going to put the ball on to DK Metcalf, and he knows that's his top guy. So I think you're going to see a lot of targets just because Rodgers knows Pittsburgh wants to win. That guy has to get involved.
What was your overarching thoughts of DK Metcalf coming out of training camp?
But it was a good summer. It wasn't a dominant, this is crazy summer. And honestly, the biggest plays he had did not come vertical down the sideline. They came over the middle of the field, which in some ways may be heartening to Steelers fans who have not heard and seen much of that in past years. It has been all go balls down the sideline with Pickens and Russ's moon ball. So it's a different style. But, it's just typical DK Metcalf. This guy's unique, the way that he can run at his size. His hands are a little suspect. He's going to drop 1 or 2 of these passes. It's going to frustrate you. They're not perfect, but just overall, the size profile, the run after catch, and just felt like a really good fit in Arthur Smith's offense. Is that big physical yak receiver who can block, and that A.J. Brown type that Arthur Smith had in Tennessee. That'll be DK Metcalf in Pittsburgh.
All right, moving forward from Mike Tomlin, review what he had to say about the running back rotation.
What was your comments there? I mean, he talked about Jaylen Warren and the extension and what he has done. Let me pull up exactly his quote. Now we wrote about that. He says, quote, on Warren, certainly he'll be our feature running back. We're not opposed, obviously, to utilizing Kenny G and Caleb, and I'm sure you'll see them. At what time and to what degree will be determined how the game unfolds. So yeah, that really was the contract and the comments from Tomlin really nod to Warren being maybe less 1A and just 1.
All right, between now and by the time this team returns from Ireland, you definitely expect a lot of Jaylen Warren out there. You're probably going to see more Kenny G than Caleb, but we expect all 3 to get touches and snaps in this offense, even starting in week 1, and then how quick Caleb can assimilate and pick up some of the things, especially with the ball not in his hands, we'll start to decide at that point how the division of labor works past the bye week.
Yeah, just as I repeated and will reiterate again, don't be surprised if Caleb Johnson's playing a little bit less than you might think out of the gate. And Gainwell's getting touches, and Warren feels more like the top guy than more of a timeshare. Now, they're all going to split time, obviously, and as Johnson gets comfortable and proves himself and earns trust, especially in those passing roles of receiving and pass protection, facing those tough defenses and defensive-minded coaching staffs, wouldn't be surprised if Caleb Johnson was more of a footnote than a feature for these first couple of games.
Over or under 5.5 snaps on the offensive side of football for Caleb Johnson.
For week 1?
For week 1.
5.5, I'll take the over.
Okay, I'll take the over too. He will be back there on kickoffs, though, we think, along with Gainwell, probably, right?
The depth chart did come out yesterday, and it means little, but there were a couple interesting notes, and really the returners were the most interesting and I think useful part of the depth chart, and they did list Gainwell and Johnson as your two return men. Gainwell did kicks last year. Johnson did it in the preseason, so those will probably be your top two guys. Johnson, by the way, was listed as the third string running back behind Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. Some of that's veteran deference, and so that's often how these depth charts are constructed, but Derek Carmen was listed as a starter, so it's not always that case. Again, I think Gainwell is going to have a role in this offense and maybe a bigger role than people think.
All right, media to Mike Tomlin. How do you measure the progress for that group, meaning I think the offensive line, when they're not on the field in a game situation? Mike Tomlin's response, you don't. Went on to be asked the confidence that they're going to be able to hit. What is the level of confidence that they're going to be able to hit the ground running? Where does that come from? Mike Tomlin says, I'm generally a confident person anyway, and I see what does Mike Tomlin look like as a not confident person?
I have not seen that too often.
And I see them work every day. The daily work leads to in-stadium performance. Do I have confidence about what I guess we got our answer, didn't we? Do I have confidence about what they're capable of in stadium? I would be making it up. None of us has seen our guys in stadium, so I think that's something we all manage this time of year, so I might not be answering your question there, but that's just the reality of this business. I think there's some speculation and not knowing this time of year. You can hide under your desk or be confident. I choose to base my posture on what I've seen from a prep standpoint, and I've been really comfortable with what I've seen. Alex, are you hiding under your desk about the offensive line coming in week 1?
Who doesn't love a Cold War comment and throwback?
I don't know what that means. Oh,
you mean
about
the cover and hiding their desk drills like they're in the Cold War? I assume so. That sounds like Arthur Smith has been saying that. It's an Arthur Smith's phrase or something that Tomlin has adopted. I kind of get the sense that's where it's coming from because Tomlin's never used that before. Anyway, to the comments on the offensive line, I think it's Tomlin being honest. The group has talent, but there's a lot to prove, and there were some great tests and battles along the way, including against the Jets pass rush or Will McDonald and Quinnen Williams, and schematically what Aaron Glenn's going to devise. So you don't know until you get inside a stadium. That's why I've talked about the offensive line being an X factor and the most critical component of this team. And even though Rodgers and Metcalf and even Caleb Johnson and defensive additions like Ramsey get all the headlines in the national media, the success of this team will come down to how much this young offensive line grows. And if it doesn't, then Pittsburgh's back to the drawing board next year and probably beyond. And their whole plan has kind of gone out the window because these couple of drafts have been about building the trenches offensively in 23 and 24, defensively in 2025 to go get your quarterback in 2026, build inside out, and then get the quarterback. You hit on all those things, you're going to be in a much better direction, but this young offensive line has to prove it, and you just don't know until you know.
All right. Just like us. He's waiting to see it. And these first 4 games are going to be crucial in determining what this starting offensive line is or isn't.
And even beyond, I had the stat you're facing 5 of the top 11 highest paid edge rushers in football this season, including now Micah Parsons in Green Bay in week 8. So there were no days off. But even if you have a great game against the Jets, it's okay. Go do it again and do it again and do it again. And not every week's going to be perfect. There'll be good days and bad days, but you need a whole lot more of those good days and those bad days. You just want to see growth overall, especially with guys in those make or break seasons like Broderick Jones or Troy Fautanu in his second year. If Fautanu has a bad year, then you've gone 2 years in without little return on him. Mason McCormick in his first full year starting. Even Zach Frazier certainly can grow and get better, and the snaps need to be more consistent. Can't have those issues that were creeping up in the summer. So there are a lot of questions across the board.
Exactly. All right. What else did Mike Tomlin have to say? Also, the TV maps for week 1 just came out, and Steelers Jets on CBS with Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt. Going to be a lot of coverage nationwide. So most of you listening to this podcast should be able to tune in to Steelers versus Jets on CBS on Sunday.
Not you, though, Dave. You get the Vegas game. I know you will certainly be watching the game through other means, but you will not get it on your local program.
Yeah, I have the Sunday ticket, so I'm covered there.
All right, Dave. Mike Tomlin also talking about Aaron Rodgers, his scouting report, now that those guys have spent the summer together. My summer with Aaron is the phrase of this one here. He says his arm talent is unbelievable, not only in terms of arm strength and accuracy, but his ability to release the ball from a variety of places. His game management expertise and experience is very evident. His line of scrimmage play, weaponizing of cadences, his above-the-net game is very unique. It's been a good process, but the proof is in the pudding. I'm sure he's excited about getting into a stadium with us and quarterbacking for us, and I know I'm excited about seeing it, end quote. So a lot of positivity there, as you would expect, but Tomlin even acknowledging, like the offensive line, all that matters is what you do inside these stadiums, all the buzz, all the hype, the criticism, all that goes out the window starting Sunday at 1 p.m.
I'm ready to see the pudding, Alex.
Yeah, me as well. Do you feel any differently about Rodgers in Pittsburgh than you did back in March when those rumors first began, or in June whenever he officially signed?
Yes. Short answer, yes. I tell you, when we have Zach on the Friday show, I want to see what his 30,000 view is of seeing everything come out, through the media and Aaron Rodgers' words and all like that, based on what he saw last year. And if he thinks this is, you just haven't seen, it's like Dallas with George Pickens, right? I mean, I think James Slater, who covers the Cowboys and is more of a, slash kind of national person, I think she does an absolutely phenomenal job and all. But I think Cowboys fans just don't know just yet. They don't know what they don't know, right?
Sure.
About George Pickens. And look, George Pickens, maybe this has been a wake up call for him. Maybe he's going to be, a model student and all on, now that he's with the Cowboys. I kind of doubt it. I think we're even going to be writing about George Pickens in Dallas once the season gets underway here. I everything that I've seen and heard come out of Aaron Rodgers has somewhat changed, at least what we've been fed about Aaron Rodgers. Now, look, I still think Aaron Rodgers, in from what I've known of him over the years, and he can be very standoffish. He can be very matter of fact. He can be very say some things. The whole Mike Williams in the red line. Those sort of things, and kind of question maybe at times ownership, coaching's decisions, staff, and all like that. But I guess overall, yeah, my opinion of him has changed a little bit. To me, he's not the guy that he's been portrayed, at least not yet.
What kind of guy do you think he is?
I mean, all I have is I think he's handled himself very well so far. So
you think a better teammate than the perception and narrative is around him?
What I have seen and heard so far, yes. But once again, I think it's going to be a key question to ask Zach.
Sure, and I agree. I think Rodgers is a good teammate. I'm not even sure where the evidence and narrative came from that he wasn't. I mean, yeah, there were those stray comments that were made about Mike Williams. I think he's a very just honest guy that will give you a straight answer. One of the few guys that will do that, and sometimes that gets himself into trouble. Sometimes you wish he was a little bit less honest than he was to the media, but it is refreshing in a lot of ways. But I think he's been a good teammate, a good mentor. I was never concerned about him embracing Will Howard, which he certainly has, and being a good teammate, which he certainly, I think, has been overall. He is a ride or die kind of guy. You love him or you hate him. Whenever you're his teammate, he's going to love you and work together and pull together. So I had no concerns about that. And I think certainly that's been reinforced by what he's done in Pittsburgh so far.
Look, there was never a question, I think, even before he came to Pittsburgh. This guy loves football. Mike Tomlin said that several times. You've got a very experienced guy here. You got a guy that when he looks across that line of scrimmage, he knows what he sees. He knows what he's probably going to get. The experience obviously is there. The arm strength. I mean, you tell me that arm looked live, didn't it, during training camp?
Oh, yeah. The arm is still really, really strong. There's great zip on the football. The velocity's there. It's better than what Pittsburgh has had. Even counting the last couple of Ben years, it's better than where Ben was at the later stages of his career. So if there's a clean pocket, this guy can still certainly make plays.
All right. So, I mean, the proof is going to be in the pudding there. You've got probably arguably your best option since Ben Roethlisberger under center for this team. And, the expectations obviously come along with that. And look, this is another thing that we wrote about and has been circulated on the internet in the last couple of days. Aaron Rodgers is not great in openers in the last 4 seasons collectively. And in these last 4, now obviously one of those seasons was over right when it started there a couple of seasons ago with the Achilles and all like that. But in the last 4 seasons, Alex, Aaron Rodgers has played a combined, 10 or 11 preseason snaps, and all of those came in one season. So this is
2023, right? His first year with the Jets.
Right, first year with the Jets. So he, at least as of late, he has not come out of the chute hot.
Yeah, his last opener win was 2020. So it's been, and the numbers have been pretty poor since. So can that all change? History is just that, but it is certainly an interesting marker and hopefully one that changes Sunday.
And then, as we stated back during the preseason, when Aaron did not play any snaps, if he plays poorly, the narrative is going to be what? Well, he's rusty. He's a new team. He should have played during the preseason, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's no winning often with the preseason. You just have to make the best decision possible. I'm on record saying I wish he would have played a little bit like that 2023 season to get some in-stadium action, just to get that component and that box checked in Pittsburgh. But I don't think it's going to be the reason why Pittsburgh misses the playoffs, should that be the case.
All right. What is Mike Tomlin expecting to see from his offense this week against the Jets?
Points. Lots of points. And hopefully he's correct.
And a W, more importantly than anything. Wants to see minimize negative plays, self-inflicted wounds, penalties, things that get you off schedule, winning possession down football. I'm sure I'm looking for the same thing 31 other head coaches are looking for their offenses in week 1.
Dave, everybody on both sides have really downplayed the top storyline for this game. The quarterbacks facing each other. You mentioned, the way that Fields is facing Pittsburgh and the way that Rodgers is facing the Jets and how unusual and unique that is. But no one, at least publicly, is addressing it as such. And Mike Tomlin downplaying it, and Fields himself speaking to the media downplaying it, and Rodgers seemingly has downplayed it as well. But do you think that's just all player speak, or do you think they really just don't care about that big headline the media is going to run with?
I thought his comments about Aaron Rodgers specifically, he said, what did he say specifically? If it's something he's not showing it, what was the exact quote there?
I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but basically Rodgers has not publicly shown that as motivation in terms of talking about this game or approaching this Jets contest.
Aaron wants to put a 50 burger on him.
Yeah, there's no way that Aaron Rodgers, knowing, even though we talked about him being a great teammate, there's certainly a bit of he's a guy that has a grudge and will hold one. And I think there was that story that Ryan Clark tried to talk to him at training camp whenever they came in that one day, and Rodgers completely snubbed him because Clark said some pretty critical things of Rodgers in the past, call him a fraud and fake and all that kind of stuff. And Rodgers does not forget. And we know that Rodgers really did not like the way that the Jets handled his release. He flew in from California, thought he would have this big 4-hour meeting with the new regime of Aaron Glenn and company, kind of talk it out. And it was just a short 15 minutes. Hey, we're getting ready. How do you want the message to get sent out? All right, cool. See ya. So yeah, there is, even though he's not showing it, 100% Rodgers wants to just destroy the Jets in this game.
Yep, he wants a 50 burger or at least a 30 burger on him for sure. All right, where to from Mike Tomlin from here?
Not to get into the weeds of this too much, I know those are famous last words on this podcast, but with Justin Fields, Mike Tomlin referenced the free agency cycle and called it really a mutual decision for Fields and the Steelers to part ways. Fields spoke to the media himself Tuesday and said he did consider returning to Pittsburgh, but ultimately signed with the Jets because of Aaron Glenn, the head coach over there, and the relationship and what he could potentially do to change the culture of this team together, Fields and Glenn, and this new look Jets roster. So, the narrative of this one obviously will be if Fields wins, it's Pittsburgh made a mistake and the Jets are brilliant, and vice versa. If the Steelers win, Rodgers was the great move and Fields, same old Jets, all that kind of stuff. But just some, a little more color to Fields' free agency, going from what seemed like he was going to return to Pittsburgh to then going to the Jets.
And he was asked, Justin Fields was asked yesterday, if he considered re-signing with the Steelers. He said yes, he did. I got a short answer. I got a short viewpoint on this when it comes to this money.
You think it was solely a money calculation?
Yeah,
I don't think it was solely money. I think that certainly played a component, but I think he certainly did not. He felt slighted, Fields did, about getting replaced midseason by Russ.
Yeah, but you can rub money on that. It feels a little bit better, I think, especially guaranteed money.
All things being equal, even though this question cannot actually be answered by two men on a podcast, but had the money been the same between the Steelers and Jets, where does Fields sign?
Yeah, that's great question. I think he signs with the Steelers.
I think it goes to the Jets. I think he just did not feel like Pittsburgh was going to afford him 100% runway to be the starter. The Jets did, and that was a big factor in why he left.
Look, if you would have gave him that same contract and guaranteed that type of money, then he's going to be your starter.
Yes, but Pittsburgh was also still looking at first-round quarterbacks and still had an eye towards that, even though they inevitably would not take one high in the draft. I think Fields felt that a little bit and wanted to go somewhere where, not just in contract, but also in just how the organization conducted itself, said, this is our guy.
Do you think, what level of grudge do you think related to Aaron Rodgers does Justin Fields have towards the Steelers, but vice versa? Is it equal to, or?
No, the fury that Rodgers can have on somebody else is hard to probably match. I don't think Fields is that kind of guy. Does not have that kind of personality. It's probably quieter, but yeah, I think any athlete, any competitor is motivated and anytime you feel any sort of slight, and I think Fields probably felt one in some sort of way towards the Steelers. So yeah, there's probably something there, but it simmers more than the boil that I'm sure Aaron Rodgers has internally.
All right. Mike Tomlin also talked about, obviously, what Fields brings to that offense.
Yeah, and it's well known from what Pittsburgh had with him last year, the run component, the scrambling, the ad-lib ability that Tomlin talked about, the schematic challenges that creates, the run game that Fields can have. All things that Pittsburgh benefited from last year will now have to defend in this contest.
He talked a lot about Justin Fields and his mobility and how hard he is to bring down and all like that. He didn't talk a lot about him throwing the football. Is he almost kind of daring him to throw the football?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, what is the best, what is the unique element of Justin Fields? It's his legs. It's his rushing ability. That's the part you really have to stop. If you're telling me, make Fields beat me with his arm all game, I'll say, yeah, sign me up for that. That's the game plan.
And he's expecting a lot of these game plan design quarterback runs from Fields too.
Yeah, I'm still going through the Jets tape. There's a lot of read options, but seemingly without the real read component, but some looks of that might try to play some eye candy and slow down the Steelers defense. But yeah, certainly I'm a little less concerned about that run element of Fields' design, but the ad lib component when it's 3rd and 7 and you take away everything in coverage and then he runs and gets 8 yards and moves the sticks. Like just doing that and how that affects your pass rush. Are you more hesitant to rush? Are you playing more lane integrity and playing more gap sound to contain him rather than to really pressure him? That'll certainly take some teeth out of the Steelers defense. That's the stuff that worries me more than the pure, run game, read option type stuff you might see on 1st and 2nd down.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the 20, 40, 60, 80 component of Justin Fields because he can
In terms of the home run.
Yeah, because he can go all those distances with his legs.
Yeah, and the ad lib style is what I think becomes just much, much harder to deal with on the road, week 1, trying to get your legs under you, catch your breath some, chasing this guy around for 4 quarters will certainly present a challenge.
Right. All right. I think we tore through Tomlin pretty good. Is there anything else that stuck out?
No, I think that covers it really well overall. Any other news coming in, Dave? I don't think there's anything else major. I know some players are speaking to the media right now. Pat Frymuth speaking. He just started the Frymuth Fund Foundation to support educators and teachers. So he's certainly, I think, the last 2 years has really assumed that leadership role going back to training camp of 2024, whenever you really felt him take on the mantle of leader in terms of talking to teammates and cheering them on and, just even small things like when DJ Thomas Jones got hurt initially in training camp this year, Frymuth going over, checking on him, talking to him before he was carted off, and now doing things, like setting up his own foundation. So you can really see the kind of maturation and evolution of Pat Frymuth. It's pretty cool to check out.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Good for Frymuth there. All right. Shall we get to some listener questions here?
Yeah, let's get through some reader emails and close out of today's show.
All right, our own Tim Rice, photographer Tim Rice, has a question today. Tim did a fantastic job with us once again with photos from training camp and all like that. He says, "Hey, this is Tim. Thought I would ask who you think is a better team, the Jets in 2024 or the Jets in 2025? Fields over Rodgers." He says, "I figured the Steelers a better team with the additions, right?" He says, "I know you guys aren't picking the winners of Jets Steelers, so I'll wait for that answer on Friday." So I guess the root of this is, are the Jets a better team in 2025 or in 2024, at least from what we think that we know about them in 2025 right now?
Yeah, it's hard to answer still from afar like that.
It certainly doesn't help them losing their right guard right out of the chute. I'll tell you that.
That is certainly true. The 24 Jets just felt like they had no soul to that team. It just was a group of talented players in some respects, but not a group that was cohesive and was really playing as a collective unit, and everyone gets fired, and it just felt like they were just never a greater group than just the individual parts themselves. So maybe 25 with Aaron Glenn can make that a more cohesive unit and a true team. That remains to be seen, but I think it was a good hire to add Aaron Glenn. That kind of makes me think 25 will be a better season, but it's all wait and see.
Yeah, it's really 2025 by default, unseen, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say 25 when you see the 5-win team last year. I think the Jets, we were both on the train last year. The Jets are going to turn this thing around last year. They're going to get
I thought they
healthy.
were going to be, yeah.
They had Devontae. Okay, the light's going to come on, and it just never did. And it's still kind of baffling that it didn't, but it just speaks to me, culturally. And granted, the ownership is still the same, and it feels like the Jets are the Jets, and everything, the fish rots from the head down, all that kind of stuff. But I think this new regime might be able to instill a better culture.
Look, how many times did I say last week in our pick 'em and all, like, this is the week. This is the week. The Jets are too good of a team. They're going to turn it around, and they never did. So, all right, Tim, good to hear from you. Christopher King writes in, swing tackle. Because Calvin Anderson missed the preseason, do you think he begins the season on the inactive list for the first couple of weeks of the season with Andres Pete dressing as the backup left tackle? And if there's an injury on the right side, use Spencer Anderson. He says, I know Tomlin said everyone besides Harmon and Herbig are good to go, but Calvin Anderson missed a lot of time. Hopefully it ultimately doesn't matter and everyone stays healthy. That's a great question, Chris. I'm still leaning because of, Calvin missed a lot of time and all like that. And Andres Pete, boy, I really wanted to see a lot of Andres Pete at left tackle there in that preseason finale. And because we didn't, it leads me to kind of speculate that they think Calvin's going to be ready to go overall there. So I could get surprised on Sunday with the inactive list, but I am leaning towards Calvin Anderson being active and Andres Pete being inactive.
Yeah, I mean, I think Anderson's going to dress when you cut Dylan Cook and you're pretty light at true tackle because, as you've talked about, Pete more of a guard. That all suggests Anderson's gonna play. Obviously, we've got the injury report here soon, and we'll get some more official word on that. Friday, we'll have the official final report. So Anderson should be the swing guy. I know that on the depth chart, Pete is listed as the second string right tackle, but I think Anderson's your backup tackle at both spots in first man in.
Yeah, and Pete's primarily been a left side guy throughout his career, and he didn't take any snaps on the right side, I don't believe, during preseason for the Steelers in the couple of games he was there for all three, but he did not play any on the right side, and really doesn't have a lot of work, I think, in the NFL at on the right side, either guard or tackle.
Right, you're like you said, left side guy throughout his career.
All right, Mario Brunell writes in, Dave, could you please do what you did last year and put together a contract proposal on air for Cam Heyward? After that, could you promptly email that to Omar so we can get Cam signed and get past this nonsense? I can't imagine they give him nothing after giving money to so many others this offseason, but Omar may simply be thinking to himself, what would Dave Bryan do? And that's what's taking so long. So give him some direction already. Mario, I appreciate you, but you give me far too much praise and credit there. And as far as putting a proposal together on air and all like that, look, we've kind of gone over the options several times of what we both think are the kind of three solutions here overall. I don't think this is an extension type situation. It's all about whether or not you're going to probably either A, you do nothing at all, B, you fully guarantee or partially guarantee some of that money in 2026, or you move some money from 2026 to 2025. Or, and I guess there'd be a fourth, you just outright add more money to 2025. So I think those are your options there. And look, I'm going to say this until there's no more time. There's always time until there's no more time. So Sunday's right around the corner. I would imagine if something does happen, it will get leaked and reported, I would think.
Oh, yeah, but if something gets done, it's not going to be kept under wraps. So we'll see. It's not looking great for Cam right now, but we've seen those tarmac deals happen before. And Troy get a new deal on a tarmac getting ready for his week 1 game. I'm not saying it'll be a new deal in terms of an extension, as you said, but some contract tweak could certainly happen from now until Saturday when the team takes off for East Rutherford.
Right. Now, once they load that plane on Saturday, so essentially, even though we say Sunday at kickoff, Saturday before they load that plane is probably deadline, right?
Yeah, when that plane door shuts, so does, I think, the odds of a Hayward or Boswell contract.
All right, so time is ticking. Todd Gensler writes in, has another Cam question. Can you speak to Cam's most recent "we'll see" comment? I know most of us believe there's no way he doesn't suit up and play on Sunday, but that comment has certainly infuriated a lot of Steeler fans and had some significant impact on his legacy. I think his podcast has done some fairly significant damage to his reputation, and the way he's going about it clearly does not reflect a leader, he writes. It is almost as if he is willing to sacrifice his Steelers legend for a few more dollars, which is clearly his own fault at this point anyways. Todd, we already spent a lot of time earlier in the show going over that once again. I understand how this looks, obviously, from the outside here, especially on, the general pushback that you get is, well, if he didn't like that contract that he signed a year ago today, he should not have signed that contract. And for him to expect it to be adjusted 1 year after signing it is ludicrous on his point. I get that, but I do see his side of it, even though that's not a popular stance for me to take. I do think the easy thing to do here and the right thing to do here, as I've said several times, is to just fully guarantee his 2026 money, shake hands, and move on.
Yeah, we'll see. I know we've had some differing takes on that, but Hayward's a prideful guy. I think he's fueled by a lot of doubt and negative comments. I think it's been pretty clear throughout his career. Is it going to damage his legacy forever? I don't know if it's going to get to that point. If you go out there and have a great season, all is forgiven, all is forgotten. That's just what it comes down to. But in terms of his comments, yeah, I don't know why he made them. I don't know why he's still trying to fan those flames. It's a leverage game, but either you're playing or you're not. If you're not going to play, say you're not going to play. If you're going to play, say you're going to play. At this point, I don't think anything you say on a podcast is going to have Pittsburgh shaking in their boots. Oh, Cam said, we'll see. We got to give him the contract now. Those threats haven't worked yet, and they probably aren't working at this point. But, he already knows what he's doing. He had said on this podcast, I think 2 episodes ago, that he's already told teammates his plans, and they've kind of joked and prodded him in a fun banter way of, are you playing, Cam? Are you playing? Like, it kind of tells me that he is playing, and his teammates know that he's playing. So I don't know what those comments really accomplish at this point, but bottom line is I expect Cam to play in week 1 and this season and to play very well.
Agreed. Alex, everybody's got a podcast now, right? Everybody.
Yes.
Even James Harrison and Joe Hayden have a podcast now. All right. I guess my question is, do you enjoy, of all the podcasts, do you enjoy the Cam Heyward podcast?
It's fine. I enjoy it as much as any podcast. It all kind of gets put through the work lens. So usually if there's a good guest that's interesting. I think he had some really fun training camp episodes. I tune into a lot of those. Whenever it's just kind of them just talking, then I'm a little less interested. So I really only have intrigue whenever there's guests. But that's true for Cam's, that's true for Ben's, and any of the others out there.
Right. We go specifically to, I enjoy anything kind of more Steelers related.
Yeah, sure, I'm with you there. But I usually, whenever it's a guest, if it's just Cam talking about the game and you can't just be careful and you can't tell stories, I like hearing some of the stories of yesteryear or just some of the more in-depth football stuff whenever there is an interview. I thought it was like Frazier and McCormick. I thought was a good one. So that's kind of what I especially tune into.
All right, one last question from a Jeff here. Says 93.7 argued yesterday that since the NFL doesn't have to honor the full contract, it's fair that Cam doesn't either. Every company, including companies with unions, have out clauses. If an electrician has a 3-year contract, but after 1 year is doing terrible, the company has to keep them? ? No. They can terminate the contract. You start fully guaranteeing all NFL contracts. What's the incentive for older players to put in the offseason work, to complete all rehab requirements for injuries, or the incentive for them to sacrifice their bodies to make hard tackles in the game? Please weigh in. By the way, the fan gives Steelers Depot guys tons of shout outs. Keep it up.
I'm sorry, can you kind of sum up the overall thoughts on what the question is on the contract?
I guess about guaranteed contracts. How do we feel about guaranteed contracts when it comes to keeping incentive basically for players, to be their best year in, year out?
I don't think it's necessarily an issue in baseball or basketball in terms of being at their best. You're still competitors. You still want to play well to get your next contract, for example. So I don't think that guaranteed contracts have shown to make players lazy and not care and all that kind of stuff.
I definitely see where Jeff is coming from here. But should I understand that? And look, I think it depends on the player, right?
Yeah, I'm painting with a broad brush with my comments. I'm sure some have gotten the bag, and we've seen that. We've seen that in football too, but in other sports, and guys get lazy. Yeah, intuitively, is there more incentive if a guy doesn't have a guaranteed contract? Yeah, I guess, but I just don't see the evidence in the other sports. Just big picture that guys get lazy once they get paid.
and guys are pretty prideful, and their teammates see that. And if they're coasting, I'm sure they'd be called out. Look, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that there's obviously risk involved when you give a guy guaranteed money. He says, I'm not gonna, this rehab. I'm not playing for a deal. Maybe I won't push myself. So I understand all those concerns there. But look, I tell you, when it comes to the Steelers specifically, and that's why it's easy to follow them from a contract situation. Most of the time, anybody that gets extensions, if they're not top of the market, top of the position type deal, the Steelers aren't fully guaranteeing that contract. That's another thing we got to talk about real quick as well too. The Jaylen Warren actual kind of numbers. We kind of buried the lead there, but in a sense, I understand where Jeff is coming from there, but I'm not one that worries about giving a player guaranteed years and then him kind of coasting, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, some I'm sure would, but that wouldn't be a reason to prevent giving those guys fully guaranteed contracts. I support them getting fully guaranteed contracts.
I guess we should. That's all the emails that I have here, but I guess we should quickly cover some of the things related to the Jaylen Warren contract, right?
Yeah, it kind of was messy the way it was talked about because you got so many little like drip nuggets of information. So try to sum up, Dave, the contract details on Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, here's the thing here. It sounds like the whole 3 years of this totals out at $17.25 million. I know it was reported with $11 million and some change guaranteed, but there's like a 5.95 signing bonus in this deal, and reportedly more than $5 million in each of 2026 and 2027 for that 3-year total of $17.25 million. The only fully guaranteed money in this is the $5.95 million signing bonus. And essentially now he got a $1.704 million more in 2025, with the other guaranteed money approximately 4 point something million, I guess, around in there, being injury guarantee for 2026. Now, we don't know yet if included in all this money is a roster bonus for 2026. For the sake of Jaylen Warren, I'm hoping there is a roster bonus in this deal for him, because at the very least that forces a decision by the Steelers, at least by next March. Now, look, nobody in their right mind thinks the Steelers are going to sign Jaylen Warren to this deal with the hopes and intentions of cutting him next year. So at the very least, it sounds like Jaylen Warren's going to get around $11.5 to $12 million through 2026. Well, actually, a little bit more than $12 million, I would think, overall there. But overall, his average yearly value only slightly increased by around $500 or so $1,000. He basically sold off 2 additional years for $1.7 million more money in 2025 and some injury guarantees in 2026. The way this, and we still got to find out, what the exact base salaries are for 2025 and 2026, and whether or not there's a roster bonus in 2026 or not as part of that $17.25 million. The way this contract is laid out, and it's not going to differ much more than what we have noted here. This is the exact reason why I didn't think they would be able to sign or would sign Jaylen Warren, because this is a deal to me that slanted heavily in the Steelers' favor here, and outside of just Jaylen Warren thinking that he wouldn't have gotten more than $5+ million from any team next season. If I was his agent, I would have probably advised him to play this out and take his chances.
Yeah, a little surprised by the numbers. Thought it'd be a little more meatier if Warren was going to do an extension, but you can see why Pittsburgh signed up for this extension, because it's a really good deal on their terms.
Yeah, look, and it won't be the last time I was wrong, but what did I say that I thought the average yearly value was going to be on this?
That was 8.35. Was that the number?
that was the high end there, but I thought at a minimum it was be like 7 point something, I think, and it's not. His new money average is actually below 6. Uh, and the reason I went with the prediction I did is I thought, man, there's no way he signs a contract, for what these numbers ended up being. I was pretty floored by the numbers here. So I guess the thinking on Jaylen Warren's part is, hey, I'm going to get an extra 1.7 million this year. I'm going to get some injury guarantees for 2026. I hope for his, like, once again, I hope for his part he got a roster bonus, included in this is a March roster bonus, because at the very least that helps his calendar cash flow. And then B, it at least forces a decision by the Steelers that if they don't want him, they've got to cut him, and he gets to hit the market along with everybody else and can land a spot that way. But this deal slanted toward the Steelers. There's no two ways about it.
Agreed. I think you look at the lens from an undrafted free agent who I mentioned on the Monday show signed with Pittsburgh for $12,000 and has a chance to lock in some couple $1,000,000 and viewed it that way, and saw Najee Harris, who had really consistent career in Pittsburgh, get paid pretty light on his deal with the Chargers, and sit there and say, I want to be secure. I want to have this deal done, put it to bed, not think about free agency after this year. Maybe that all kind of compelled him to take a below market deal.
And look, and I noted this as some of the numbers started coming out. The Steelers could have picked up the 5th-year option on Najee Harris for more than $6 million, right? So they obviously didn't, and I'm not addressing that decision or not. But where I'm going at is they actually get Jaylen Warren on a cheaper average yearly value than what that 5th-year option on Najee would have been. They got a guy that's got less wear and tear on him than Najee does. And then not only that, they've got him locked up for 2 additional. They have control. They bought control of him for 2 more years past this year for essentially an additional $1.7 million in cash, right?
It's a good deal if you can get it. And you have Caleb Johnson on his rookie deal. So you have a cheap, young running back room for several seasons.
So if you look at this now after the fact, if you were thinking the Steelers are crazy for signing Warren to this deal, I sure would like to hear people's reasoning behind not signing up for this.
Yeah, it feels like Pittsburgh gave Warren's camp kind of a lowball offer just to satiate them. Maybe they wanted to talk contract, and Pittsburgh said, here's an offer. And they said, yeah, we'll take it. And Pittsburgh went, okay, well, that's surprising, but cool. Let's get it done.
And look, I know he was injured last year, didn't necessarily set the world on fire and all like that. But if you would have told me going into this offseason that this would end up being the deal that Jaylen Warren signed in late August, early September, I wouldn't have believed you.
Now, here's just one thought to consider. What if Jaylen Warren has a great season and says, well, I know I have 2 years left on my deal, but you just moved up money for Cam. Should that happen? Just moved up money for Boswell. Let's talk new contract, or maybe in before 2027, Warren says, I'm going last year my contract. I've been the starter. Let's actually give me some good money this time. So
yeah, good luck with that.
Well, but how these things go sometimes. So just saying that, the contract may not be done for the entire length of the deal.
Yeah. He ain't getting another contract.
Probably not, but
he ain't getting it adjusted or anything. I don't think.
Probably not, but he could ask, and that could always be a story.
Yeah, it never hurts with asking, and we'll find out how that plays with Cam Hayward and Chris Boswell. But anyway, I want to make sure everybody enjoys Dave being wrong. So I thought I would get some of the, because we didn't have a lot of the contract numbers to work with the other day, and B, everybody enjoys a good segment of Dave being wrong. But I did miss on this one, and once again, this is a prime reason why I didn't think Jaylen Warren would be extended this offseason. I just didn't think they could give him a deal good enough that would get him to sign. And he obviously has his reasons and all, and at the very least, could you push for more base salary in 2026 or and we'll see if I hope he got a roster bonus at the very least for 2026. Not that it changes the big picture of this thing, but this was one of the, I just didn't think they would be able to get him to sign a contract like this, and they did. So I think this is a big win for the Steelers. I don't think many people should have an issue with this deal.
I agree. I'm with you, Dave.
All right, I suppose we should get out of here. A lot of players talking to the media right now. They'll obviously practice, and then we'll have an injury report to discuss. Alex and I will be back on Friday talking about our predictions for the Steelers and record and what we think is going to happen with them. So it should be a very entertaining show on Friday, and hopefully equal to, or if not more entertaining than this show, because we did actually get to a lot today. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot, follow Alex at Alex_Kozora, follow the show at Terrible Podcast, email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.